Yes, yes, yes. All right. So some would say that the Bible and talk about, well, the biblical origins or the Hebrew origins from Kemet, and would say that, well, everything in the Bible, at least everything that one's regard as good or spiritual, right, principles, is what the Hebrews or the Israelites got out of Kemet or out of ancient Egypt. So some have this kind of modern day belief that, well, the Bible, we only have the Bible because of Egypt. It's almost like saying that ancient people would have had no spirituality if it wasn't for the Mitzrayim or the Kemetic, the ancient Egyptians. And that's a latter day logical fallacy, a false view of the reality, right? I think even Garfield, one of the brethren, has said the Chaber, one of the Chaberim had said he saw some vlog that I think this one named Garfield from the pseudo-black scholars, pseudo-black consciousness group. Now there's some real black scholars, but they don't really get the light of day. All this pseudo stuff is going on. But the brother said that this Garfield posted like a video. You're going to check it out, right, and get forward to I-9. This is what reminded I said, champ, I've been talking about this and kind of talking around this when I'm talking on certain other subject matters. You know how we like to connect certain dots to show, like, okay, as we zoom in here, zooming out slightly, we can see a bigger picture that's connected. So we can get this over here, the truth of this over here, it connects with the truth of that over there. So Bible origins from Kemet, or other ways of basically trying to say that, well, everything that the Hebrews have, we Hebrews or the Bible, is all because of Kemet, that we would have had nothing, no idea of any spirituality, that every spiritual thought that ones have, at least biblically speaking, is because of ancient Egypt, that many, of our people, lost sheeple, black people, regard to be Kemet, as Kemet. We're going to use the Hebrew Mitzrayim, or the more popular Egypt. But this still here caught my attention. I said, let me start off this still here where it says Egypt's archaeology says you can trust the Bible. Now, our view, right, is that true. This is true. But see, here's the fact, is that most, even ones amongst the black scholars, right, they're not really scholars as they want to be, as they really want to be. There's a few that are, but the ones who really are, for example, Brother Zion Lex, Abdiel Ben Lewi, right, Abdiel Ben Levi, or Ben Lewi, right, respectfully, Ben Lewi. Even this brother, a fellow Yehudi, a fellow Israelite, a Hebrew, a fellow black Jew, right, also hailing to the same order, the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, the commandment keepers, congregation of the living God, from that same true root of I people in this resurrection. He started to study the ancient Metunet, what they call like the Metunet. Some say that's the alphabet, or, we could say the language of ancient Mitzrayim. And he's become quite adept. But part of the key of that is because the brother already comes from a true Hebrew, Ethiopian Hebrew, and Israelite community where we study our language, our linguistics, and where the key of Egyptology really is the Bible. And ancient Egypt and Egyptology owes almost everything to the Bible, right? So we're going to say it like this: you can trust the Bible. In fact, this whole thing, Egyptology, is ancient Egypt was made great again, let's say this clearly, ancient Egypt was made great again because of the Bible, making Kemet great again. Give thanks to the Bible, thank the Bible. If it wasn't for the Bible testimony, while Egypt, by and large, over past, let's see, how many years, let's put this in a range, within the past, say, hundreds of years. In fact, Egypt has only been really, the ancient Egypt only really is being recently really defining real things. Up until the recent couple of hundred years, most of what they found was very, very few and far between. You see, it's the King Tut. You remember when they found the King Tut tomb and all of the stuff? King Tut was like a treasure trove. I mean, the real so-called grave robbers or archaeologists will tell you this themselves, the real grave robbers, not the secondary ones that kind of want to munch off the lunch of the grave robbers, some of these pseudo-scholars that try to put down the Bible when the actual fact of the matter is that among the Western Gentile Europeans or white people, Egypt was made great again because of what they found in the Bible. Most of what we know about Egypt today was not known a couple of hundred years ago, much less 1,000 years ago, all right? Much less even 2,000 years ago. We know more about ancient Egypt today than ones and ones really knew back nearly 2,000. Because by that time, 2,000 years ago, ancient Egypt was already, already had fallen to so many invaders, right? And when we look at the Hebrew experience, the Hebrews actually did ancient Egypt good, right? Did ancient Egypt good because we testified to ancient Egypt in our scrolls of ancient Egypt, and it caused people to remember ancient Egypt, we could say almost forever. In fact, the Bible has done more, right, to, in that sense, immortalize. The Egyptians were said to, be in search of that quest for resurrection and that quest for like immortality, so to speak. Well, they can thank and should thank Moshe, right, the Bnei Yisrael, and the sons of Israel. They should thank Moses and the children of Israel for that, right? And the prophets and the tribes, all the way even to the Brit Chadasha, because we even have Egypt mentioned there when Kedis the Mariam, when Holy Mary and Joseph, took the baby Yeshua, right, Yes Nazaretu Jesus, into, right, Mitzrayim, into Egypt and Ethiopia, because Yeshua was in Ethiopia. Jesus, right, of the Bible, right, Jesus Christ of the Bible was in Ethiopia. That's half of the story right there. But it's because of the Bible, right? The Bible has made Egypt made great again. Egypt, or Kemet, made great again because of the Bible. The Bible has made Egypt and Kemet great again because of the Bible's testimony, right, for thousands of years. Notice, no matter what they try to say, there is more manuscripts of the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, than there is of Greek and Roman history combined. There is more documents that prove the Bible BC, right? The Old Testament, Brit HaYashana, BC, right? Sefer HaBrit, the Old Testament, falsely called the Tanakh by many. We're going to get in on that as well as the AD scriptures or the New Testament scriptures. There's more manuscripts for biblical history, and the historians and the archivists, they know this. In fact, that's part of the next video we're going to get into. We're going to show you there's more manuscripts, right, for the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, than there is for Greek and Roman history combined. Did you know that? So when people say that, well, the Bible, if you can't show me an old manuscript, that means that the Bible, never existed. Like what the Bible's talking about, the Israelites and Moses and Solomon and David and the tribes, they never existed because you can't show me a manuscript going back like a 3,000-year-old, or 4,000-year-old manuscripts. The Israelites didn't just stay up in a dry-ass country. We didn't stay in Egypt. Why you can find things in ancient Egypt? Because Egypt is a dry-ass country. They have very little water, right? The sand, and more sand, right? That's why they find things almost perfectly preserved, right, just under the sand that may be 1,000 years old. See, we Hebrews, because even the name Hebrew, right, to cross over, we kept it pushing, right? And we kept it pushing all over this earthly plane. Right, all over this earthly plane. And of course, us being all over this earthly plane, part of that was because the consequences of our disobedience being scattered to the four corners of this earth. But the point being that we was all over the place, carrying our manuscripts all over the place in different type of terrains and territory. We didn't just stay in a dry ass country like ancient Egypt. So how you can expect to find parchments? Take those same parchments that have been found Notice this, whenever they find ancient parchments in ancient Egypt and they take them out of the country, like to the European countries, to England or France or Germany or something, they have to put these parchments in specially controlled kind of rooms and everything to preserve them, because if the temperature is not right, those parchments disintegrate. You see? So we can even then add to our initial claim, right, that because the Bible testifies of Egypt, Jah, Jehovah, El Elohe Yisrael Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be He, blessed be the name, Elohe Yisrael, the power of Israel, made Egypt survive to prove the Bible. Thus, this meme right here says Egypt's archaeology says you can trust the Bible. So what's the problem? How come people saying that the archaeology is contradicting the Bible? No, the archaeology is contradicting counterfeit Christianity, right? And counterfeit, Judeo-Christianisms and schisms. Is contradicting the lies that other people, right, calling themselves Christians and Jews have claimed. That's what the Bible contradicts. It contradicts white racism, right? What Egypt's archaeology contradicts is white racism and white supremacy. That's what it contradicts. And all the lies they've been telling about the Bible, all the make-believe they made us believe for over 400 years and made themselves believe over 400 years. Because it's not just us that they made believe a lie. They made themselves believe a lie. That's even worse. Because many of us are waking up from that lie because we're saying, wait, hold up for a moment. Walk like an Egyptian? Steve Martin? You mean Steve Martin is not an Egyptian? He said, walk like an Egyptian. So how come there seems to be this fascination among the Europeans with ancient Egypt, right, going back hundreds of years? In fact, we showed a little bit of it in the previous video, where this is before they had cameras, or if they didn't have cameras, film was like very, very expensive, Film was very, very expensive. And so what they did, they had like Napoleon, when Napoleon tried to take over, I think, Egypt and different ones, and the British and the French were fighting over Egypt. But when they had their scholars come in there, like Champollion and the rest of them, a lot of these ones, they came in there to like do grave robbing, basically, grave robbing archaeology, and because they couldn't ask, they didn't ask the people, they asked the invaders, So it's like a bunch of thieves got together, When you know who's over there, they're not the ancient Egyptians. The people who are the real people in connection is the black people down in Aswan. But they wasn't going to ask the black people, the literal descendants of the ancient Egyptians, permission or anything. But they do go to them because these people still know the truth, because they are the descendants of the ancient Egyptians, right? They're descendants of the ancient Egyptians. Point being made right here is that KEMET, what's called KEMET and the Kemetic among black folks, right? And black conscious folks and black wake folks, Or generally speaking, Egyptology or ancient Egypt was made great again because of the Bible. Plain, simply spoken, nobody would care about ancient Egypt. Nobody cared about ancient Egypt until the Bible testified. And it's because of the Bible's testimony on ancient Egypt that it caused many adventurers, explorers, grave robbers, pseudo-archaeologists, that's just a fancy term for, grave robber. You go in somebody else's country and you say, we want to figure out for science sake how all this started. So let us go dig up your ancient art and facts and let's take it back to our place and own your stuff and then tell you what your stuff means. Okay? But ancient Egypt, the research and the exploration of ancient Egypt in modern times, let's say modern times and European times over the past, you could say 1,000+ years, is because of the biblical testimony. And we can tell that the white man then didn't know what he got to know in the 1900s. It's really the 1900s, like the 20th century, the 1900s. It's really around the time of the 1900s that their knowledge became more clear because of the richer archives, or treasures they were able to find, like King Tut and everything they found after that. But why were they looking for it? That's the question. Why were they looking for it? How did they know where to look for? See, a lot of people don't know that before, say, maybe between 500 to 1,000 years ago, but coming more to recent time, you know how much sand they have dug up? You know how much they have dug down deep, right, to find stuff that was buried under the sand? Some of the first explorers that went to Egypt, they basically said they could not see very much. They heard about ancient things in ancient writings, but they found very little of it because most of it was buried under the sand. The so-called modern Arabs, or the Arabs, they helped them a lot, right? When I say they helped them a lot, because they were there, wanderers, what they call it, Bedouins and so forth and so on, and they basically, like the people who hang out in the neighborhood, so they hear what's going on, and they basically got to hear that there were some treasures. And one slick thing that some of the Arabs, the Arabic people that are over there today, that are part of when the Greeks came over there, the Greeks brought some of these other kind of people from like the East, like the stands, like Afghanistan and those other places, and some Indians and other people they brought over, and then a lot of the people got converted to Islam, and they was mixed with the Greeks, like most modern Egyptians. Yeah, they're Arabs, but if you really go into their roots, they are part of the conquerors of ancient Egypt, right? So many of those people, when they went over there, they had their tents or whatever like that. A lot of them dwelt in tents in the early days, and they are the ones who basically robbed all of the white, what they call it, the white, the lime, what they call that again? That the pyramids were coated over with. They basically took all of that to build their houses. So when you look at Cairo today, right, a lot of Cairo today has been built up with Cairo, and the Giza pyramids are like a hop, skip, and a jump from each other. That's why when you look at the pyramids today, they look like somebody been like eating away at it, right? What they've been doing was taking off of like the white what they call, like the kind of like, it's like a marble. I can't think of the name right now. Some of you probably are calling out the name right now. But they took all that. They took stones. In other words, they robbed ancient Egypt. And when they first settled in that land, in ancient Egypt land, they would like dig up. They like to dig, like you hear about over in Israel, the state of Israel, when them and the Palestinians, and talking about how the Palestinians be digging these tunnels, something like how the Mexicans, they say, be digging these tunnels and everything like that. So they're very good at, digging tunnels, like that rat work. They're good at that rat work, digging tunnels and so forth and so on. So what these people would be doing, and they testified to this, that many of the Arabs that came to ancient Egypt, they would like build their, put their tent, and in their tent, they would start digging in their tent. So if you're looking at the outside the tent, you see people already living in the tent, they're going in and out of the tent. But what they're doing inside the tent many times was digging, right? And sometimes as they dug, right, they would find things. And because they found some things, they would think there's more things. That's how they got into a lot of, the buried stuff and everything. But when the white man now, after he was reading his Christian translated Bible, he's reading all this stuff about Egypt and the Israelites and ancient Egypt. Because Egypt, you know how many times Egypt is mentioned in the Bible? Let's go here. Let's do this right here for a moment. How many times is Egypt mentioned in the Bible? How many times do you think, brothers and sisters and brothers? We're just talking about the 66 books. Let's just look at the 66 books, right? Let's look at Egypt. Let's look at Egypt. All right, how many times is Egypt mentioned in the Bible? Well, this can't even tell us right here how many times Egypt is mentioned in the Bible, because there's a limit, right? You got a limit. Over 100 times, right? Egypt is mentioned in the Bible. There's a couple of other ways I can bring it up. We want to get an accurate, right? An accurate count, right? We want to get an accurate count, as accurate a count as right, an accurate account as we can. I think we had the, what was it, the word software? There we go, right there. We're going to pull this up, got to pull this up off of there, because Egypt is mentioned in the Bible, I would dare say, I know over 100 times. All right. The question I have is, which one is mentioned? I think Egypt probably is the second, maybe most mentioned name, maybe second to third after the name of the Lord, right? According to the translation, right? The name of the Lord, right? Jehovah within the Hebrew sense, right? And after Israel. Let's look up right here. Egypt. Egypt is mentioned in the Bible 646 times. 646 times. All right? And here's the interesting thing. Egypt, as it's called Egypt, is first mentioned in the King James, the English translation, in Genesis chapter 12, verse 10. That's the first mention of Egypt as Egypt, right? Or as in the Hebrew, Mitzrayim. Let's look up Israel. How many times Israel is mentioned in the Bible? Israel is mentioned in the Bible 2,319 times, right? 2,319 times, right? You already know or should know Ethiopia. Ethiopia is only mentioned in the Bible, right, according to the translation, about 38 to 39 times. About 38, it says 38, but there's another area, you know, right? Let's look up Cush. Cush, under C-U-S-H, Cush, right? Cush is mentioned 16 times. So theoretically, if we add the 16, right, the 16 to 38, 39, we have a little bit more. But that does not match how many times we have Egypt mentioned in the Bible. Egypt mentioned, I mean, need we look up Europe? Need we look up Rome? Let's look up Rome for a moment. Rome. How many times is Rome mentioned in the Bible? Rome is only mentioned in the Bible 13 times. The KJV, Old Testament, New Testament. Rome is only mentioned in the Bible 13 times. Let's look up Greece. How many times Greece is mentioned in the Bible? Greece is mentioned in the Bible 2 times. Greece is mentioned in the Bible 2 times. You want to go for USA? Well, let's look at Babylon. Speaking about USA, let's look at Babylon. All right, let's look at Babylon. How many times is Babylon mentioned in the Bible? Babylon is mentioned in the Bible 265 times. Remember, Egypt is 600, I think, was it 46? 646 is mentioned in the Bible, and some significant verses in the Bible. I mean, with Egypt, we have almost similar to Israel, right? Except Israel in much more so, right? But in a similar sense, we have Egypt mentioned in good ways. See, a lot of people don't know this. People are talking about the Exodus. Oh, the Exodus, they killed men, women, and children. No, they didn't. Stop lying, right? Yes, the men, right, of Egypt were targeted because they were the ones who was behind the downpression of our people. They are the power holders, straight up, right? In fact, some of the Hebrews actually married many of the Egyptian women, and many even of the Egyptians came with us. The mixed multitude was largely many of the Egyptians who began to believe the way that the Hebrews believed. And that was a part of the political. It was a political situation at a certain period in time. It's like when people had Trump. You remember when Trump was president? Everybody was going crazy. You know what I mean? But is Trump always the president? No. Is this Pharaoh always the Pharaoh? Suit and bet, suit and net? No, there are different times. So it's like looking at America, right, back in the 40s or the 30s. It was different than America in the 50s. It was different than America in the 60s and the 70s. Different than America in the 80s and the 90s. Different than America now. So we see America and other countries going through different phases, different changes, different governments. Sometimes people that were in favor in this administration fall out of favor in another administration. right? And this is the epicenter of what the whole thing concerning the Exodus was all about. It wasn't trying to say to the Egyptians that y'all can't believe in whatever y'all want to believe in, but don't try to make the Israelites believe in what you believe in, or force them or stop them from their belief. There was not freedom of religion for the Hebrews at that particular time of the Exodus in Egypt. See, I'm saying these things because people have to look at it in reality, or people should look at it in reality, right? Instead of talking about, well, the Bible origins come from Kemet. Prove it. Prove it. Oh, you mean because in the Bible we speak about resurrection? Resurrection is the Old Testament concept, straight up. Proof. Most of the New Testament ideas, we can find the roots of it, the true ideas in the New Testament, the roots of it in the Old Testament. So people say, well, the ancient Egyptians, they're the first monotheists. Get out of here, man. Get out of here with that crap. Come on. So you're saying that only the people of this nation, no other nation, there were other nations back in the past time, so no other nations believed in one God. See, we as the Israelites, and based on the Torah, we even know that was not true. Even Abraham at one time was confederate with some of the Canaanites who were in the land. Even some of the Canaanites believed true, some of them did not. Some of the Egyptians believed true, some of them did not. Listen, even the Israelites, right, who this was given to, some of them believed the truth and some of them did not. So people would be people, right, first of all. But the fact is that ancient Egypt was made popular, right? Egypt was made great again because of the Bible. People only were interested, the same people that are behind your Egyptology, right? And the whole movement for Egyptology. It was not black Africans that was talking about, oh, we need to dig up ancient Egypt. Was it black Africans that would think about digging up ancient Egypt? I'm talking about before the white man came there, right? Before the white man was there, right? What about the other Africans? None of the other Africans wanted to dig it up and figure out who was this pharaoh, who was that pharaoh, what were their spiritual ideas? See, y'all are following the white man's bandwagon. It was the white man that was all into that, right? And why was he all into that? Because first he got into the Bible. He started to read the Bible, right? I mean, many archaeologists and people who have made certain historical discovery of some so-called ancient places clearly mention in their writings, autobiography, and their research work and everything else, they clearly mention that they heard about these things in ancient history or the Bible. Ancient history and or the Bible. By the time the Greeks and the Romans get up into ancient Egypt is not what it was. See, when we Hebrews left ancient Egypt was still doing all right for itself. So don't blame us for the situation of ancient Egypt historically, right? Or even today. We blame you pro-Kemites and all y'all who say you're Kemetic and you're pro-Kemites, because instead of talking about, oh, the Bible took this from us, the Bible took that from us, who has taken Egypt from you? Who has taken Egypt from you? Egypt has been taken from you. When you go over to Egypt, it's not like you're going to some black people and the black people are the ones who you have to reason with to look at your black ancestors, allegedly. No, it's other people. So instead of making these little arguments like the black conscious folks, is it Kemet? Which one is better for us, Kemet or the Bible? Right? Well, first of all, with the Bible and the scriptures, we still find living and historical examples of black peoples outside of the European, white Christianity and Judaism who are practicing these things, right? As far as this Egyptology thing, right? It was ones like Budge, right? It was others like, Champollion, right? The French. It was the English, right? It was the Germans. It was the other Europeans who they the ones who were interested. Napoleon tried to take it and then he got caught up and mixed up with the British, and the British basically beat the French ass, and then the British took it over, right? Where's your people? Where's these African armies interested in it? It's obvious that after Egypt fell for thousands of years, nobody else, no other Africans were interested in, oh, let's dig up Egypt and keep Egypt alive. But it was the Hebrews. We Hebrews were honest enough in our scripture to speak about the good. We spoke about good that we encountered with Egypt. We spoke about bad that we encountered with Egypt. And we also spoke about the ugly that we encountered with Egypt. So don't believe these liars. They're all caught up on the Exodus. The Exodus is not what caused Egypt to fall flat on her face. It's ones like y'all, right? Because just like those that were standing in the way of the Hebrews in ancient Egypt, y'all are trying to stand in our way instead of being about what you should be about. Get out of our way. Let us do our thing. Stop talking about, oh, the Bible origins come from ancient Egypt, because it's just a speculation that you got from European and white scholars. All you're doing is regurgitating European and white scholars. And the shame of it is that the majority of these ones amongst the black conscious folks that talk about ancient Egypt, very few of them can even read the language. That's why we mentioned the brother Zion Lex. Zion Lex, being a Hebrew and an Israelite and a black Jew, was able to learn the language and master it, right, to a sufficient extent that his lectures off the chain, right, connecting both the context of ancient Egypt as well as with a biblical narrative, right? With a biblical narrative, real scholarship. But then it makes sense, because a lot of the scholars who are really behind the scenes of Egyptology, likewise, are Jews. They may be white Jews or European Jews. Many of them know more than one language. They're not English only, and they're the ones who are doing the primary research. In fact, we came across something in just doing this video right here, getting ready to do this vlog right here. And I think they just had found some stela. They found a stela, you know, recently in ancient Egypt, you know, a stela. And it allegedly has some carvings on it, right? And allegedly it's saying something about Israel, and it's more proof, right, of the Bible, right? In fact, we love Egypt. You know why we love Egypt? Real Hebrews and Israelites love Egypt, right? Because Egypt, it testifies to the Bible. Real Egyptology. The problem is y'all can't do real Egyptology if you don't know the language, and not even just know the language of ancient Egypt. In fact, those who cracked the code linguistically of ancient Egypt were acquainted with other languages. That's why you look at Budge's dictionary and other dictionaries. What do they compare? They compare Arabic and Hebrew, right? Some of the better, more learned scholars even go into the Ethiopic, the Ge'ez, right, and the other Afro-Semitic languages, especially of the black peoples who are related both to the ancient Egyptians as well as the ancient Israelites, that their descendants still live in that Horn of Africa east of the River Nile region, you know, East Africa, the so-called East Africa region to this very day. All right. But anyway, brothers and sisters, sisters and brothers, we're going to get in and get out of this. This was this one right here. We haven't read this publication, but definitely, I don't know if it's a video series or whatnot, we want to check it out, right? Because there is a lot of proof, right, that proves the Bible. The problem is that there's a lot of pseudo-scholarship out there. And when you know the language and linguistics, and you're speaking to some of these idiodotes, right? Idiodotes, it sounds like it, but I'm actually saying something else. Idiodotes is ones and ones that just look at it from their own point of view, right? Their own point of view, right? In order to study ancient Egypt, for many of us, you know, we're not trying to make it the Bible. Right? We just want to study ancient Egypt and find out what is Egypt saying. Most of y'all are trying to study the Bible or look at the Bible or read the Bible to try to undermine it or find fault with it. Right? He who look for sin and for fault will be cut off. You know, they're looking to find fault, right? Because if they get out of that mentality, they might really learn something and really be able to teach something. Anyway, brothers and sisters, Kemet, ancient Egypt, became great again because of the Bible. Because of the Bible is at the root. The Bible is at the root of Egyptology. How about that one? The Bible at the root of Egyptology. More to come, brothers and sisters. Shalom, Chaverim. Shalom.